What is your passion? Where are you going? Have you pinpointed your aim? Does your life have a specific target? Maybe there are roadblocks on the path of your dreams. Connie Cavanaugh from Cochrane, Alberta, dreamed of being a writer and a speaker, and she is. She's following God, one yes at a time. But she knows what it is to be stuck in a spiritual wilderness. Connie, I'm so glad that you're not only here to talk about this, you've written about it. We've just looked at your current book, but there was a previous book, kind of a tell-all.
It was.
I need to show it to you. From faking it to finding grace, discovering God again when your faith runs dry. A tough confession for the wife of a spiritual leader.
That's for sure.
And someone with the kind of nurture and spiritual foundation that you had when you went into this crisis.
Well, exactly, because when I was first a believer, the very first church I joined, Moira, my pastor was Henry Blackaby. So I had a fantastic foundation.
Co-author of Experiencing God, which many of you have done.
Right, which, you know, changed the evangelical vernacular. I mean, it was just, everybody all of a sudden started talking about join God where he's working and using those words that was kind of the milk in my baby bottle of faith nurture. And so when I went into this wilderness, it was completely, I was blindsided by it. It was completely unexpected because I had a radical conversion. I was called to ministry. I married a man in ministry, loved being a pastor's wife. Totally unexpected thing for me to wind up in this place for 10 years where I wasn't sure that what had happened to me was even real. Maybe it was just a phase. Maybe I was duped. Maybe it wasn't true. At many points, I thought I'd lost my faith completely. Now I know, looking back from the other side, that that's impossible. But when you're in it, you know, you're just so blinded by your circumstance that I just thought I'd lost my faith.
What are the first symptoms of losing ground?
I think the first symptoms are not easily recognizable because it's something so subtle. It's something that I call spiritual drift, and it, just like drifting off course out on the ocean. You know, if a person sailing and using a sextant took just slightly wrong readings, just off a degree or two, then you know you don't notice it right away. But over a period of days or weeks, you could miss landfall by thousands of miles. And that's the way it is with spiritual drift. It's very subtle. It starts with disappointment or pain or suffering of some kind, or maybe things don't, you know, go the way you thought they would or turn out the way you were expecting, and so you get scared.
And what happens? Disillusionment creeps in.
A little disillusionment, yeah.
Because you're walking with God and you're expecting.
Well, you're doing what he called you to do, so it's like you're kind of expecting, I think you're sort of expecting things to go a little smoother. You know, it's like, okay, I said yes to God and I'm doing what he wants me to do. And so we visualize this smooth path because everybody's always looking for an easier way, aren't they? We are, that's just human nature. Let's find the easiest way and let's just walk on that smooth path. So when you hit some bumps along the way in this path, they kind of catch you by surprise and you sort of like, hey, you know, are you paying attention? Like, you know, you called me to this. I you know, went into ministry. I married the preacher. I did all of these things and I'm suffering. I'm in difficulty. So what happens, and here's the subtle part, Moira, is that you get this sense that, he's not taking care of me. He's not protecting me from this pain, so maybe I need to take care of myself. And it's never a conscious decision. You wake up on a Tuesday and say, I'm going to say no to God. It's not like that at all. I still, you know, taught Sunday school, was in the worship band, brought a pie to everything, was involved in ministry up to my eyeballs.
You were faking it.
But I was faking it, exactly, because I started taking care of myself, so I stopped listening. I stopped listening, and what happens when you stop listening? You eventually stop hearing, and you're in the wilderness, and you don't know how you got there, and you don't know how to get out.
So the adage we often hear, fake it till you make it, You don't believe that?
I really don't believe that. I believe start telling the truth. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because right in the midst of that wilderness, that incredible dryness, it's too long of a story to go into now, but a woman spoke truth into my life directly from the scripture and led me to a psalm and said, you're going to teach transgressors and bring sinners back. And that was right out of Psalm 51. And I'm like, I am a transgressor. Like, are you not paying attention? But of course, I was faking it. I was hiding it. So she had no idea. And shortly after that, I got a phone call right out of the blue. And it was someone from Ontario. And I wasn't a speaker, Moira. Like, I was married to somebody who was known in the Christian community. And so I spoke a few times because I was the wife of, so they could get me for free. But I wasn't a speaker. I didn't do that. But out of the blue, I get this phone call. Will you come and speak to our women? Our theme is Get Real. Oh. And our scripture
Did God have your number?
Oh my goodness. Our scripture is Psalm 51:6. Surely you desire truth in the inner man. And I'm thinking, good grief. And I'm just ready to hang up the phone and say, you have no idea. Like, I'm not even sure I believe anymore. And then just as I'm about to say that, I remember the prayer I prayed walking home from that woman's house, so frustrated after she spoke this so-called truth into my life. And I had just called out to God and said, okay, if this is what I'm supposed to do, if you're real after all, like I used to think you were, I'll do this thing. I'll bring these sinners back, but you're going to have to come after me because I don't know where to find you. And I didn't expect that. I expected to like clean up the parking lot at the church, do nursery duty. You know, I just did not expect that. But just like when Jesus walked across the water to the disciples when they're in the boat, Jesus never looks like we expect. That's why they thought they were seeing a ghost. And so when I had the phone in my hand, I'm thinking, this can't be it. But I didn't dare miss it. I didn't dare miss it, because if this was it, this might be my only chance. And so I said yes. And that was the beginning of following him one yes at a time out of that 10-year wilderness. And
10
praise
years.
God.
It's just awful to think of you in that pain.
It was awful, yeah. It was.
And a key ingredient, missing ingredient, was a sense of the presence of God.
Yes.
I just want you to comment on that, because for a lot of people, not feeling God, and not experiencing God,
exactly,
is the crunch.
Well, and that's the difference, isn't it? Because, Moira, I grew up in the church. I grew up in a home of good, godly people, but they didn't understand a personal relationship with Jesus, and I was never told that. And that's why at the age of 18, after being a troubled teen and in trouble as a teen, at school, at home, with the law, when someone told me about a personal relationship with a living God through Jesus, that was an experience. I mean, suddenly I could experience a spiritual reality that I was completely blind to before that. And when you're in wilderness, it's worse than being pre-believing, because you had once known this. I had once heard him speak to me. I had once, the Bible had been so full of truth to me, and now it was like a Dickens novel. I mean, I couldn't get into it. I could not.
Real barrier.
Oh, huge barrier.
We're going to list some of those in a minute. It's funny because I think of a Henry Blackaby quote from Experiencing God. He said, understanding spiritual truth doesn't lead you to an encounter with God.
Right.
It is an encounter with God.
Exactly.
So as you were made aware that you could know Jesus personally, you were experiencing him.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you're in that desert place, and you brought a really delightful treasure here, specifically a Western treasure. You can probably guess what's in this box. Tell us.
Bernard Callebaut chocolates.
There you go.
Calgary.
Not just any chocolates. Chocolates on the trail.
Right.
What were the chocolates that were God's loving kindness wooing you?
Well, the amazing thing about the chocolates on the trail is the little story of where I got that was this family that's how they taught their kids to hike when they were just little toddlers, as they put little chocolates on the trail. And I noticed that when I began to follow God again, one yes at a time, that I could only go so far, because you see, my faith was so unused. My faith muscle was just kind of flabby and weak, and it wasn't working properly. So I would say yes, and I could go, you know, not very far before I would want to just, you know, like that toddler on the hike, flop down on the trail in my diaper and just cry. And right about that point, there'd be a chocolate on the trail. And that would be some kind of a sense of God's presence, some sort of a special gift to me. And it might be a real live thing, you know, like somebody, like this morning, so, you know, a good friend walking into the room before us coming on the set together just to say hi. That was a chocolate on the trail.
Our green room was like the lightning show this morning, because you were truly
full
surprised.
of chocolates.
They're all right over there.